Excited to talk to you, and I feel like you have so much to share with us today. So I wanted to see if you could just tell us a little bit about who Liz Fletcher Brown is, and just a little bit about your background.
Okay, well, that's a big question. Who are you? Um, well, first thing is, people always say I have a bit of an accent, which if I go back to Scotland, they always want to know whereabouts in America I'm from. But I was born and brought up in Scotland, and I always loved to dance. So when I was 21, I moved to New York City. I didn't know anybody in America, and I had about $200. I came on a red eye with a red backpack and showed up at JFK and said, "World, here I am." And so I lived in New York City for 10 years, loved the energy of the city, danced, had a wonderful time. And then after about 10 years, I did get a little burnt out on it was actually the noise, the city, the traffic. I was done. So then I moved to Hawaii, and I've lived in lots of wonderful places. Love beauty, love nature, so I love to be out in gorgeous places wherever I live. I've always been fascinated with what makes people tick. I remember being a little kid and I didn't like going to the dentist. I remember thinking, why would somebody want to be a dentist? And being fascinated with what motivates someone to choose one career over another, and why do some people excel and some people just kind of get by? And I always remember being really fascinated. I always asked my mom, why? And had this insatiable curiosity about why people did what they did. So after I stopped dancing professionally, I continued to study personal and professional development, and that's really been a driving force most of my life. After I stopped dancing, I continued to take dance classes because I had this wonderful ballet teacher. And so she would roll us all up and she'd say, "Ladies, I don't care how high you kick your legs. I don't care how many pirouettes you can do. The only thing I care about is that when you dance with full wattage." And I remember at the time thinking, oh my gosh, I love the feeling I have when I'm dancing. And I do have that feeling of being completely engaged. But I wasn't feeling that in the other areas of my life, especially my career. So that began a process as to what does it take for a person to live that level of engagement in all the areas of their life. So that's kind of been my journey since, and sharing what I'm learning along the way with other individuals and organizations and how they can bring more full wattage to people's lives.
Wow. So, okay, question. Do you still dance?
I do still dance, yes.
Yeah.
Love to dance. It's part of who I am. If I'm not dancing around the living room, I'm doing West Coast swing or some kind of dance. But yeah, I
Yeah.
still love to dance.
Yeah. And so then how did you make the transition from what you were doing into, coaching and, I know you're a speaker now, an inspirational speaker, and just really motivate people to embrace that full wattage.
Well, it was an interesting transition because I remember as a teenager, so many of my friends wondering what they're going to do with the rest of their life. And I knew because I knew always I was going to dance. And so later in life, when I was no longer dancing professionally, I went through that same kind of what am I going to do with the rest of my life. And so it kind of emerged. I just kept following my passion. I've never had any kind of work or job except for very, very briefly a waitressing job in New York City, but even that was kind of fun. But I've always had found ways to create work doing something I was really passionate about. So it was a series of steps. After I stopped dancing professionally, I got into the health and healing arts, became a massage therapist, yoga therapist, and still did stuff with movement and dance and working with kids. And that just became a progression from there, constantly interested in how can you help people be more who they are and bring more of who they are to what they're doing. Later in life, I actually was involved in a network marketing company, and it required having to get up and do public speaking, and I was terrified. I remember thinking, put me in front of 300, 400 people in an exercise type dance environment. I was teaching dance since I was 12 years old. I am totally fine. Put me on stage in front of thousands of people dancing, totally fine. Ask me to say one word, oh no. So I went to Toastmasters, and I discovered after the first couple of times getting up and speaking that I actually, once I got past that initial thing I'd made about it, I loved it. It was really the same. It was inspiring and connecting. It was really about making a connection with people. But instead of doing it through movement and dance, I was actually able to use words as well. And through storytelling and through examples, help people to reach in themselves for what does full wattage mean for them individually. And so one of my colleagues at the Toastmasters group I was a member of said, you should join the National Speakers Association because you've got such a natural gift and you could be a keynote speaker because you've got the stage presence from being on stage my whole life. So that's how I got into professional speaking, and now I love talking to audiences about how individuals can bring more of their passions, their strengths, their gifts, their values, and align that with their work. And also for an organization, so many people, I coach so many clients, and this is true, that they're going through the motions at work. They're not engaged. They're not they feel like they're not bringing their whole self. They want to, but they're not being encouraged to do that. And so I love to work with an organization at the other end of the spectrum. How can we help an organization to have their employees show up and actually feel that they are bringing their whole selves to work, that they're not leaving 90% of them behind and just going through the motions from 9 to 5, but they are being honored for who they are. Their values are in alignment with the organization. Their strengths are being utilized. So I'm on a mission to have every single person love going up and going to work, whatever it is, whether they're self-employed or whether they work for an organization. That's my dream, is that people, they love what they do and they feel that they are bringing their gifts to their work, whether they're self-employed or whether they work in a big organization.
And that's fantastic, because there are so many organizations, I think, that could be even better than they are if they had someone like you come in and help figure out, for example, how can somebody bring, 95% to 100% of themselves into the office? Yeah. And I've worked for a few organizations, and some, have won that Best of Washingtonian over, in DC where to work. And it really shines through in the day-to-day. You can feel it. It's like an energy in the office. Yeah. You really want to be there, and it's creative. It's fun. So that's great that organizations are open to what you are bringing to them.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too, just to add, what's been organizations, is that I'm also really passionate about specifically helping women, emerging leaders, develop their skills, because every study shows that when there are more women on the board of an organization, profitability goes way up. And yet, at this point, it's what we're sadly lacking in having women really step up and take on their leadership and make a difference, whether you're talking politically or whether we're talking in organizations or nonprofits. Many of them are still very out of balance. So helping women to find their full wattage, their power, be fully empowered and step into being leaders and take that on. That's incredibly important, because, right, even the Fortune 500 companies, it's incredible how many women are not there. They're just not even in the room. Yeah. And so we do really need your help to understand how to present and be, in that space and really get on those boards and be a part of the conversation. So thank you. Yeah. So one of the things that I think is really interesting that you have a lot of knowledge on is, neuroscience and the aspects of neuroscience and how you can almost rewire your brain, in a sense, to create more positive thinking and positivity in your life. So could you share a little bit more about that? Oh, absolutely. Because that's what I like about my work, is I get to balance both sides of my brain. So there's the inspirational, creative part, but it's also backed by really hard science. I've actually, interestingly enough, I've been teaching people how to rewire their brain for more than 2 decades, even when scientists said that it was not possible. I knew that it was, because I could see the results that my clients are getting. I absolutely knew. I was teaching workshops in this 2 decades ago, so for me it's exciting that science is actually catching up with what a lot of us already known. So it's not like it's new, it's just that now that it's been proven, corporations will actually give it credence as well. So what we know about the brain now, that we can actually, with a functional MRI, means that we can actually see the brain in action while it's thinking. And so we're able to learn a lot more about the brain. So what we know about the brain is that the brain, your brain is it's so bombarded by so much information. In a millisecond, there is so much information bombarding your brain. And so the brain, in order to cope with that, it creates pathways in our neurocircuitry. And these pathways are essential, because if it wasn't for that, you wouldn't be able to just take a breath, digest your food, have the right enzymes be released to the right place at the right time. So there's so many things that are happening that our brain is responsible for that is unconscious. And so because the brain likes to have a sense of control, and because there's so much information, and these pathways in consciousness get created, mostly unconscious, so they're implicit, and so they create these associations. And so your brain is happy when everything is all going smoothly like that. There's a part of your brain called the anterior cingulate, and its job is to notice when there's a change. If there's a change, any kind of change at all, it sends a warning message to a part of the brain called the amygdala, which has been associated with the fear part of your brain. And it sends this warning, and all of a sudden we feel all this fear because something's not right. Now, this happens for any kind of change, even a really good change. Let's say you decide you want to change your diet and eat healthier, you want to start working out. Have you ever tried to make a positive change and everything in you says this is a good change, and yet you sabotage yourself? And it's because unconsciously our brain does not like change. I mean, it really doesn't like change. It wants things to try to stay the same, even things that are not good for us. So what we know about the brain, though, is that we can influence these pathways. So for example, if I was in front of a room right now of people and I held up a bright yellow color, or I asked you to think of the color yellow, and then I asked people to think of a fruit, what do you think most people are going to think of?
The color yellow?
And then they're going to think of mostly a banana.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And so if I was to show you a movie of Rocky climbing the rocky steps in Philadelphia, and your brain was hooked up to scan, and they're checking everything was going through your body, what we would say is you'd feel more empowered. You'd actually feel more empowered by watching somebody else feel empowered. And so we can influence these biases, and that's really the essence of priming our mind, so that you can prime your mind, because once you set up a spiral or a cycle like that, it becomes a spiral either upward, which is evolutionary, or downward, which is devolutionary. So if you're getting up in the morning and you're putting on the news and it's bad news, that creates a devolutionary spiral. And there's actually studies being done with this, which shows that if you get up in the morning, this is done by Michelle Gielan, and she has written done a lot of studies on happiness and happiness in the workplace. And so what she's recently discovered is that through their studies, if someone watches a few minutes of negative news in the morning, 6 hours later, if you ask them how their day has gone, the percentage of people that will say they had a bad day is exponentially, hugely increased when they've watched something negative just for a few minutes in the morning. That's how long it still influences us. So we are priming our minds in a case like that when we're getting involved in gossip, negativity. Of course, the biggest one is our own self-talk. Oh, I can't do that. They're not going to hear. Who's going to want to know what I have to say? And we put ourselves down. We get caught up in this negative spiral that is more difficult to break. On the other hand, we can positively prime our minds by certain things like watching things that are inspirational. We can being out in nature it has an amazing effect on our brain. Anything that's on, even if you can't get out in nature, but if you've got plants and flowers in your office in your room, or if you every so often look at, like my screensaver in the background just changed to this beautiful bright green vivid grass, and it's like your body has a response when it sees that. And the biggest one and the most simple one is when you are feeling in that negative spirals happening and you can stop, if you've got the awareness to stop, and ask yourself, what's one thing I'm grateful for? That is so powerful, because when you are grateful, your brain is releasing neurotransmitters, oxytocin, serotonin, and dopamine. They're the same neurotransmitters that are released when you take antidepressants. So you can actually, and so what they do is make you feel good. They make you feel expansive. They actually create new pathways in the brain. They open and expand our thinking, so we're more creative and more innovative. And this has been really well researched. There's a woman named Barbara Fredrickson, and she's called it the broaden and build theory, which says that when we think of something that we're grateful for, our brain actually opens and expands and our thinking broadens, versus when we're looking at something negative, our brain contracts, and then we get stuck in that narrow thinking, which is so if you ever had a problem and you get your brain gets so focused, and then somebody else comes along and the solution is so obvious, but you didn't see it because your blinders on. Well, when you think of something you're grateful for, it actually is opening and expanding your mind to allow new thoughts and new possibilities to come in. And so, and here's a really cool thing. If you're in a really bad place and you just can't get to something that you're grateful for, even the act of trying and thinking about something you're grateful for has a positive effect.
Wow. And that alone is huge, because you could be anywhere, like doing anything basically, and you have the power. You don't need anything. You don't need it, an iPhone or a computer or even like a pencil. You just need to recognize it and stop, and then, take yourself out of it basically and start thinking about what you're grateful for. And it's a shift. I mean, sometimes it's really hard if you're really upset about something.
Yeah. Yeah. So here's a clue. I'm glad you brought that up. Bring it up. So it is hard. It's easy to say, oh, well, if you're thinking of something negative, just switch and think of something positive. Well, yeah, easier said than done. So here's a couple of clues.
Okay.
First step is, and I've actually got a whole formula. It's called the undoing formula. And it's essentially a multi-step formula to help get out of a stuck place. And the parts of it can be done separately. It doesn't have to be, when I say it's steps, it's actually elements, because you can pull the elements apart and use any one of them. But here's a progression that works really, really well. So you know that you're feeling off, something isn't right. That's actually the first step, because with awareness comes liberation. That's the hardest part. So the first step is to just become aware of the fact that, okay, something's off right now because I'm not feeling joyous and grateful and happy, and that's my natural state. I'm not feeling the love. That's my natural state, so something's off. So the first step is awareness. The second step is to focus on a physical sensation. So, for example, I might right now think of, okay, I can feel the backs of my legs and my buttocks on the chair. I can feel my spine. Okay, so I'm feeling physical something. Then the easiest thing to be aware of as a physical sensation is the air coming in and out through your nose. Mm-hmm. So I might stop and think, okay, I feel the air coming in and I feel the sensation of the air as it comes in and out through my nose. Mm-hmm. And if you just focus on that, and then you start to think, okay, so now I'm focusing on my breath. And I'm just bringing my focus so simply. I'm just feeling the inhale and I'm feeling the exhale. And I'm just becoming aware of the fact that I'm breathing. So now we're taking something that is unconscious, which is breathing, and we're now consciously changing it or becoming aware of it. That in and of itself, see, now we're in control. Because we're taking something that we generally don't have control of and we're putting control on it. So now we're breathing. We're focusing on the breath. And then you think of one thing you're grateful for. So the step is, first is awareness. You become aware of the fact something's off. Second of all, focus on one physical sensation. So usually the easiest one is, what's your body contacting? Where do you feel the quality of the fabric of the chair, or your something in your clothing, and then from there bring it to your nose and think of the air coming in and out through your nose, and bring your focus to your breath, and just focus on a few breaths. And then ask yourself, what is one thing that I could be grateful for? I'll sometimes wake up in the middle of the night and I feel anxious, just because it could be hormonal, it could be because I got hot and my body associates that sometimes with feeling anxious, it could be something that's bothering me. Most often than not, it's just some physical thing in the body and it wakes me up. And so then, of course, the brain starts to ruminate. Have you ever had that? Like, you wake up and everything's fine, but you feel something. Oh, yeah. And then your brain starts making up, well, it could be this, could be that, could be this, could be that. And before you know it, you've got this downward spiral of rumination and worry, and I call it awfulizing. You're thinking of all the most awful things that could possibly happen, and it's hard to get out of that. So first you stop. Okay, I'm awfulizing. That's the first step. Second step, I'm lying in bed. I can feel the covers touching my skin. Okay, I can feel the air coming in and out through my nose. I'm breathing. Take a few breaths, focus on the breath, and what am I grateful for? And I tell you, in 30 seconds, I'm in a whole different mindset.
Wow, that's wonderful, and I love hearing that, especially when you're sleeping, because for me, okay, I love sleeping. So in the morning, I'm sort of like, nah, I can just like hit my alarm. I think there's a lot of people that just snooze, and you have all these like grandiose ideas of you're going to get up and, go for a run and whatever. But I feel like with this method, you could possibly use that. So if you hear the alarm, any tips in the morning to get folks out of bed and actually do what they plan on doing?
Oh yeah, I've got a great one that's worked so often. So
Okay.
One thing is make it as easy as possible. Let's say it's working out. Let's say you want to exercise more and you want to get up in the morning, but the easiest thing is to hit the snooze alarm. So first of all, have your workout clothes right next to the bed. So when you get up in the morning, they're right there. Actually, one of my clients even went to bed in her workout clothes, so she didn't have them on. But have them handy. When you wake up, this is what you're going to tell yourself. I'm just going to get up and all I'm going to do is put my workout clothes on. I'm not committing to going to the gym. I'm going for that 2-mile walk. I'm just going to put my workout clothes on. Okay. Once you've got them on, this is what you're going to agree to. You're going to agree that you're going to put on your sneakers, your shoes, your comfy shoes, and you're just going to walk down your driveway. And that's it. Now, once you've got your workout clothes on and your shoes on and you've walked to the end of your driveway, that's it. You don't have to do anything else other than that. That's it.
Okay.
Most people, once they get to the end of their driveway, keep on walking.
They're like, okay, I can go a little bit longer or whatever.
Yeah.
I like that. So it's just really like getting you here and then getting you there. And then after that, your brain's pretty much on board. But it's those first few steps that are the most important.
It is. That's why just putting on your workout clothes and walking to the end of your driveway.
Yeah.
That's the only thing you have to commit to doing. Other than that, you're done. And if you decide after that you're going to go back to your house, that's fine, you did it. But
right.
But just taking those few steps to get, I used to be a member of the gym that had this really nice hot tub. I lived in the Pacific Northwest and it was cool and damp, and the idea of getting in the hot tub seemed kind of fun and nice, and I didn't really fancy the idea of working out at the time. I'm usually very active, but I went through a phase of being not so. So I would tell myself, look, I'm just going to go to the gym. I'll have my workout clothes with me, but I'm just going to go to the gym. I'm just going to put my swimsuit on and go sit in the hot tub. Well, of course, once I got there and saw everybody working out, I thought, well, I'm here. I might as well just do a quick little bit of cardio, And then before I knew it, I was working out. So I've done that myself, and it works.
I really like that. I'm not against sleeping in the workout clothing. I think that's a great idea. I know my niece sometimes sleeps in her, outfit for the next day.
Yeah,
so.
Absolutely. It just take away all the barriers, because your brain is going to start. And then the other thing too, again, comes back to awareness. Mm-hmm. Sometimes the fact that you know this is going to happen. So when I've got a client that's going through some major change, let's say they have the boss from hell, and their boss is making their life absolutely miserable, and they've come to me for coaching because they need to make a major shift. Mm-hmm. So we go through all of the processes of helping them connect with what their purpose in life is, what are their gifts and strengths, what do they really value, and help them to find what would be the perfect next step that really is in alignment with who they are. Because the more our goals are in alignment with who we are and our deepest sense of our core of our being, the more likely we are to do them, versus just, well, I really should do this. But when it comes from that deep place, there's a higher chance of doing it. So we get everything all lined up, and they keep the whole time, they're telling me how horrible their boss is, how they hate their job, how exhausted they are, how they're getting sick, yada, yada, yada. We go through the whole process. They have their resume together, they're putting it out there, they get an offer, and I have to tell them, this is what is potentially going to happen. You're going to turn it down because you're going to come back to me and say that your job isn't so bad after all. Now, I have to warn them ahead of time, because they will sabotage the heck out of it. Because even though it's something they want, it's the same with the relationships. The person who's in this horrible relationship and they want to leave, and then you help them to create a vision of what their ideal relationship would be like, what the ideal partner would be like. And as they step to actually make really real steps towards it, all of a sudden, you know what? It's not so bad after all. I think I'll just stay. Yeah. And so I've had a client who went back into that so many times because, she was really strongly attached to not making that change until realized she was so miserable she had to make that change. So that's where, if you're aware of the fact that your brain is going to do that to you, then it's easier because it's not going to be unconscious. So now at least you're doing it with your eyes wide open. You choose to not go work out, your eyes are wide open, because I'm telling you, you will sabotage yourself. Your brain will be so creative to have you not make that change. So when you know that, then it becomes more of a game. And then it's like you see it. It's not hiding under the rug anymore. You know it's going to happen, and you're prepared for it. And then you can put things in place. There's a whole bunch of different tools I'll use with my clients to put in place so that when the brain starts telling them all the reasons why they shouldn't make that change, they're ready to compensate and create that upward spiral going upward versus turning into a downward spiral.
Wow. So if somebody would want to do coaching with you, how do they get in touch with you? What do they do?
Good question. A couple of things is they could just go to my website, lizfletcherbrown.com, which is Liz, F like Frank, Letcher, brown.com. There's a whole list of ways. I do personal coaching one-on-one, I do organizational coaching, and then I also have group coaching where I'll work with a group of people where we'll go through an online program with video and audio, and then we also work with in a live group as well if someone's not ready for the one-on-one coaching too. And then as far as organizationally, through my website there's a contact form and people can contact me through there. And by the way, on my website I always have something to give to people as a gift if they're not ready to jump right in. So for example, right now I have a resource guide on living with full wattage, and it's a whole list of things that you can do right now, and then there's meditations in there's all kinds of stuff in that guide, and if someone goes to lizfletcherbrown.com and scrolls down, they can register for the guide. And if they don't remember my name, just go to fullwattage.com and you'll find me there too.
Okay. Well, I'm definitely going to include those links under this video at my blog, because I think love that you have the free content, especially on the full wattage resource guide.
Yeah.
I'm going to go download that.
Oh, good.
I don't have that yet, and then just see more information about you and all the different resources you share. So we could have talked about a lot more. So I'm really hopeful you'll come back and join us soon. But it's been a pleasure, Liz, and I just love your spirit and everything you're doing to help people to move forward and transform and live the life they imagine. So
that's my dream.
Much.
Well, it's lovely talking with you too, and I too hope we get to talk again soon. Thanks.
Thanks. Bye, Liz.
Bye.